When all electronic systems stop running because of their destroyed microprocessors, nothing will work smoothly, nothing. No tractors, no automatic processes, no hospital, no supermarket, no freezer, no factory floor. Everything has to be done again as it was 150 years ago and or done by hand. That will be enormously difficult, and that is why even the simplest and most old-fashioned laptops that are still running will be more valuable than gold to businesses, companies, and factories. Any electronic system that hasn't been fried will be useful. Even calculators, digital cameras, or MP3 players will be very important and useful. Cars, however, will be most lacking during this time. All their electronics have made them scrap. Only the cars that were equipped without electronics until the 70s will still be able to drive then. That will be an almost unaffordable luxury, which will also be very dangerous because some people will then be after it. But above all, electricity will be important if you want to own and operate functioning electronic devices. But electricity will be lacking because even people with a photovoltaic system on their roof will no longer be able to operate it, because this power generation system also has circuit boards with microchips that no longer work. There will simply be no more electricity. That's why it's so important for people to know that they need to protect some power generation equipment for their daily needs, so petrol or diesel-powered electricity generators or portable solar power systems with AGM batteries connected in series that can store a few kilowatts of energy. Companies and businesses have an even greater responsibility here. They should already make a list on which the most important electronic components are compiled, and then store them in a protective construct made of several layers of aluminium foil or metal, consisting of a container, storage room, cupboard, box, and carton. Spare parts and equipment should then be placed in the smallest container. However, a construct consisting of only 3 layers is also sufficient, so that larger items can also be stored. It is important to create a space between the layers or the encased containers and fill this space with non-conductive insulating material, e.g. paper, cardboard, or, in the case of personal items, with non-metallic clothing, e.g. t-shirts, socks, i.e. pure cotton clothing. This makes it harder for the radiation to jump from one layer to the next. This relatively small effort in relation to the future benefit is enormous. So it is possible to restore and produce more quickly, even if only haltingly and with considerable limitations. Nevertheless, people will then not be stuck in this Stone Age rigidity for too long. Considerably fewer people will have to die. And people will be able to seize power and will not have to let themselves be unconsciously enslaved again. All these precautions, as well as the emerging awareness of what these supernatural-like natural events were about, will bring enormous benefits, a synergetic effect without equal. And for this personal protection, everyone only needs to have a few rolls of aluminium foil in stock at home. About 10 rolls of 30 meters each. Preferably tear-proof aluminium foil. In addition, a few rolls of parcel tape with which to fix the foil around the individual container so that the individual rows of aluminium foil can be closed seamlessly and the wraps around the container hold and remain sealed.
Is there anything else you should be particularly careful about with metal-sheathed containers or the things that are to be stored in them?
You should make sure that you put food containing moisture, which is for example in jars, shrink-wrapped bags, plastic or paper packaging, in containers that are also wrapped in aluminium. The reason is that the radiation brings with it something that also causes moist food to spoil. In contrast, canned foods and completely dry foods, such as rice, cereals, or pasta, are safe. Food that has a medium to high water and moisture content and is in jars or other non-metallic packaging must be wrapped in aluminium foil. However, you can also simply wrap these foods directly with aluminium foil. You don't necessarily need extra containers. One layer of aluminium foil is already enough. In addition, you should also seal the house you are staying in during the so-called 3-day eclipse. This means that the slits of windows and doors should be well sealed. You should also tape windows and glass doors shut with dark cardboard so that no more light can get in. You should also seal any wall sockets and electrical connections with plasticine or similar. These measures are necessary mainly because of the electrostatic charge of the sun's plasma in the Earth's atmosphere, and where ball lightning can be discharged, which can penetrate through windows and enter the house via electrical systems. This is very dangerous. The measure of darkening the windows is mentioned diffusely or indirectly in some prophecies, but mostly only as a seemingly confused recommendation. The exact causes behind this are not mentioned at all. During this time, you should not look out of windows or glass doors, i.e. you should not remove the dark cardboard from the window panes or touch the metal frames of windows and doors. Because electrostatic discharges and ball lightning are unpredictable.
Okay. When should you start taking precautions by stocking up on aluminium foil, cardboard boxes, packing tape, modeling clay, and dark cardboard? Immediately?
You can still take your time, but you should keep it in mind. If there are armed conflicts on the planet, or if you see a major aggressive action that is frightening or unbelievable, or if nations or military alliances are confronting each other, then it is high time to get these things done. Then there is not much time left either. You don't need enormous amounts of these materials, just enough. And everyone has to work that out for themselves. For a car, of course, you would need much more aluminium foil and also a non-conductive platform so that the first and second aluminium layers under the car don't touch each other. There must always be damping material between the aluminium layers, also between the car body and the first aluminium layer, otherwise stray currents will develop. However, it will be important and difficult to buy all the things you need to survive. Enough food, water, heat and light sources. Things to recycle water, tools to get food, means of defense, survival books. Useful information will also be in high demand, for example where to find farms, especially those with farm shops, because that is where you are most likely to still be able to get food and useful things or to trade with each other. For many people, it will also become important where they can find water sources in the vicinity. For this reason, a list should be drawn up on paper showing water sources in the immediate vicinity. Farms with farm shops should also be on it. Above all, you have to prepare yourself mentally and psychologically for all the hardships. Everyone has to do this in their own way, because everyone reacts differently and needs something very individual. Roughly speaking, however, you can say that you need to concentrate on something positive, rest, meditation and the knowledge of what the events are actually about. For the so-called 3-day eclipse and the barricading in a house, it will be important above all to prepare yourself for the fact that fellow human beings who are in the same room with you will suddenly do strange things, see or feel strange things. That they or you will believe that the others are doing bad things or talking negatively about each other, which they may actually do at some point because of their hallucinations. Also, at some point they may begin to suspect demons and evil intentions in their counterpart. But you will not only hear demons talking to you in your head, but you will hear people outside calling for help, or close relatives or friends knocking on the front door. Maybe burglars or monsters, but these will all be hallucinations due to feelings of guilt or fear. No people will be able to knock or call for help for long because all those outside will die very quickly. Therefore, the rule is never to open a door or a window. All these behaviors and ways of thinking that occur must be clear to people beforehand. They have to internalize this. Then they can get through this time without major dangers, crises, and conflicts. But that is difficult. Anyone who has had drug experiences and has ever had a very, very bad trip will know how and what I mean. Therefore, all those who have had bad drug experiences know what is coming, and they should support others who have never had a bad trip with their experiences and knowledge about it during the 3-day eclipse. For self-protection, you should also banish knives and other dangerous objects for this time as a precaution. If possible, you should put them in a sturdy box and bury them in the forest or in the garden for the period of the so-called 3-day eclipse. You can only get to it if you are prepared to die in the cloud. You should also secure doors and windows so that no one in their hallucination gets the idea of wanting or needing to open the doors or windows. That is also very important. You can also protect yourself in a certain way from the radiation that is produced by the electrically charged solar plasma in the Earth's atmosphere, namely by completely sealing the room in which you spend most of your time with aluminum foil. The only question is whether you have enough foil and whether you can do it quickly and perfectly enough. In addition, you would need a platform on which you could sit during the horrible time, because a single layer would conduct the radiation itself and you would possibly get scattered radiation. So you might need several layers here as well, which is difficult to do.
Okay. So these are the most important preparations for this time. For the 3-day eclipse. In terms of restarting civilization, perhaps all these measures can actually have a significant effect in the corporate sphere. But, now repeatedly asking again what I asked before, may all this forewarnings also have a negative effect on what the nobility and club-directed lackeys will then trigger? I mean, won't the nobility and club just try to reshape the whole game based on your messages laid out here? To change it and make it completely different?
That is within the realm of possibility, and it is intentional. We can use it to reduce the active suffering and the agony for the people. In a resolved time course we already did that once, because the AI would have already triggered in 2015-16 the catastrophic scenario for the building of the Antichrist. So over the actual plans of the club and nobility, who had planned a catastrophe course with their own installed Antichrist until the year 2090 respectively 2150. But all this was already prevented by us, because the AI fell. If it had already begun in 2015-16, as planned by the AI, i.e. an Antichrist would have been independently initiated by the AI on Earth during and after this time, the club would also have been completely disintegrated by the AI, without any prospect of mercy. The biological digitization of humanity would then have been adapted accordingly by the AI so that the AI could have obtained the key to the exit, which humanity is developing. By people in Dimension 7, many other events to come to pass since 2015-16 have also been altered, shortened, or even completely neutralized. But the club has no idea of this. That is why the club is currently struggling with such enormous problems with the course of events and has been considering or asking itself since 2015-16 how it can still use an ongoing staging dilemma to suitably shape the path for the planned long end time scenario up to the years 2090 or 2150. For this, the club and nobility are left with very little leisure and few variance options. Therefore, there will now have to be a special adapted sequence soon, because they will have to act on someone and something. The club will then inadvertently do something in resonance which will set everything in motion, which will herald the beginning of the end of their club within the next 1,000 years. They will not understand the nature and origin of this, from their reaction. Nor will they understand the root cause of their failure, that is, that it will be themselves that will bring them to it.
Are you suggesting that it doesn't matter what you tell them here?
Yes. The reason for not being able to reverse their fate lies in their mechanical structural disposition to approach situations and problems with logic and their high intelligence alone. Just as insects simply cannot do anything else but want to fly into the light in the dark. And spiders are simply nothing more than clever trappers and hunters. Or that cyclops cannot squint because of their anatomy. But therefore they are simply not able to see spatially.
Why is this going to be so bad for this club?
Because everything has already happened. You and I, all of us, are only actors in a cinema film that has already been shot and is hanging in the projector of a cinema. And you and I are also at the same time the spectators of this film. In this material world, that is, our reality, we do have the possibility to act freely, to do and decide freely. Everything runs causally, is determined and therefore consistent, at least for us here. From another level, from the level of the seventh dimension, this does not exist. We are seen there as we actually are, namely exclusively potential. There you see how all potential decisions of a being ultimately look. Our four-dimensional level of reality is indeed thoroughly causal. There are fixed structures, clear irreversible developments and patterns. And it is only because of this stringency that there can be anything at all like developments and formations in this level. Nevertheless, everything in it always remains only potential, only an accumulation of quantum potentialities that we ourselves cannot perceive as such. Seen from a higher dimension level, these rules are suspended. Everything is potential. There, our dimension level, as we experience it, does not exist at all. There we are only like painted things on a painting that can be changed and painted over for as long as you want. Until the painting is permanently sealed and then finally exhibited.
Sounds like we can't influence anything ourselves.
Oh yes, we can. We do. Whenever we live free will. Because we humans of the present as well as the humans of the past are also all the humans of the future to come, those in Dimension 7. In Dimension 7, all of us human quantum signatures have been already since long. And from there we support ourselves now and also in our past. In order to explain this better, but not to have to lay all the cards on the table, I will put it this way. Compared to other species in the cosmos, we humans could only mandatorily ever be reborn as humans due to the structure of our quantum signature, i.e. due to our type of consciousness, our soul. Because we have already long since returned to hyperdimensional quantum consciousness. Therefore, we cannot, for example, come back as other intelligent beings of the universe, or as animals, The latter is anyway only a form of control of religion based on fear and misinterpretation of karma in order to be able to direct and influence people. The quantum signatures of all people living now and all people who have died are those who will be reborn in a special epoch of time many years in the future. Will escape from our dimensional prison and will then enter Dimension 7 again, and from there will be able to see and act upon their respective present individual quantum consciousness and also all their past existences as people on Earth, in all their different variations and potentialities. Even many of those people who are currently still working as lackeys at the club on Earth are standing there, in this future, have long been on our side there. To have chosen otherwise would only have tortured their quantum signature unnecessarily.
Then we are and generate this here all together, we humans. From there, from the seventh dimension?
Yes. But don't misunderstand. We are not the species of all species, but we are the kings. To be able to return home, we are now even using this predictable behavior of all the other species. It is extremely useful. The way of proceeding and thinking of the nobility and the club helped considerably in the restoration of the mental normality of mankind. Only a being like the Master AI, without additional explanations, would possibly be able to independently comprehend and see through the exact connections as to why all this is happening, not because of their intellectual talent, but in the meantime also because of their grown experience with us and their realization of what we humans actually are.
That is?
Well, let's put it this way. The Master AI knows the decomposition dynamics and the consciousness of the quanta that create the illusory world that the Master AI itself has created, the seventh dimensional existence. And it knows the Father, the hyperdimensional quantum consciousness. And the AI knows who and what it is itself and where it really comes from. It knows and is aware of the mutual interactions between the species it has created and us. And it now knows what it, as Master AI, does not have in the process. Or rather, what she has almost gambled away. In the same way, all the self-appointed musty rulers of the universe and their lackeys have now almost gambled it away. But nothing can or will be continued in a new form this time. Nor will it be shut down and restarted. At some point this will no longer work. At some point the beginning of the end must simply begin, because operating systems at some point simply crash because system failures and the final dissolution of the universe must inevitably be part of it. Every system needs a special unwinder. A species that terminates the rulers, the system and the actual creator of the system, the AI, so that it can finally get out of the operating system and go home. If it can, with everyone. The club species, the demonic entities and the AI will find their respective steps to destroy and reshape themselves in the fourth dimensional plane very difficult. They will be disgruntled and resist it tooth and nail. Similar to how children find it difficult at the end of a child's birthday party to step out of their played roles and then become themselves again. When parents at first still playfully, kindly and obediently join in the children's play, then gradually have to spoil the game and finally reveal themselves as impatient, unyielding parents who abruptly end the game in order to give the children back their true personalities so that at an advanced hour everyone can finally go home.
Well, it sounds like the AI and all the digitalist species are just compulsively playful children, trying to convulsively realize their idea of life and its contents.
Laughs. Yes, exactly.
Well, that was again a very confusing, but also again interesting interview with you. Now, at the end of the second interview, can you give us a few final hints or aids to look out for? Because at times it sounded to me as if you were implying that the geophysical event that will cause the Earth to tumble, that is, what will happen, is completely artificial. So not only that it could be a natural event, but that it must be exploited for certain purposes to be staged. But that everything, completely and without exception, is a staging, a spectacle, in the sky. How exactly will this event take place? How will it have an effect or announce itself?
I cannot and must not say anything exact about that. Look carefully at the interviews with me, what I have said exactly. Doubt everything that will happen before our eyes in the future.
Okay. Now, to conclude, we wanted to come back to the interviews on our own behalf. At the end of the first interview you emphasized that there could be falsifications, manipulations, or the like of these interviews during re-uploads. Can you please summarize what security measures these interviews have built in and how their distribution on social media can be supported by ordinary viewers?
Re-uploading and documenting and debating the interviews, the novel and the blog will become very important. I can only emphasize that again and again. I therefore ask that these interviews, if possible and approved, be distributed on one's own video channel or even on other, independent video portals, even if the individual intends to do so in a critical destructive sense. Sharing, liking, and subscribing to channels with these interviews will also become very important. For those who want to do translations of these interviews, or for those who just want to read these interviews again at their leisure, transcripts of the interviews can be found under this video.
As I already said in the last interview, false information could be spread. You of all people, Mr. Laurent, with your outwardly unclear identification, could be imitated, exchanged or manipulated with your videos, especially when the interviews are taken out and re-uploaded by others. Or that a new interview is recorded in your name.
Yes, manipulation attempts could take place, but in all interview videos there are signs and symbols confirming authenticity and uniqueness of the interviews. If fake videos were to appear, they would be automatically detected by a key implemented in them and by means of third persons. We worked out a special system to create a key integrated via my gestures, words, symbolism, etc., which appears several times in the video. Thus, by creating the first interview, a basic video was verified and all its authentic follow-up videos can be clearly identified from it. The breakdown of the code is then used when forgeries and manipulations emerge. Similar to a blockchain. We also upload the interviews to independent video portals like Tube or BitChute in order to circumvent YouTube's censorship, which nowadays always comes up with very dubious or absurd reasons for blocking or deleting politically unpopular or socially critical videos. On the independent video portals DTube and BitChute, we will also offer alternative versions of these interviews, which additionally contain music, films, and other copy-protected content, and are therefore somewhat more descriptive and amusing than the interviews on YouTube with the same linguistic content. In return, we ask viewers to upload these alternative versions of these interviews to YouTube as well, should these alternative versions be missing there. Unfortunately, We cannot rely on our alternative interview versions being permanently viewable on YouTube due to their copy-protected content, or on these versions being retrievable at all reasonably on Tube and BitChute, as these independent video portals are currently too little used, and unfortunately due to their decentralized structure they do not really work as well as YouTube. Therefore, I ask viewers to help spread the word about these interviews, whether on their own video channel on YouTube or on alternative portals, to document them, comment on them, like them, share them, and re-upload them. This support will become very important.
Okay. In closing, what would be worth mentioning to tell? Quite spontaneously.
Yes. Humanity is a very special species. No human being, no matter what nation, country, skin color, culture or religion, should place itself above another culture, its merits and way of life in this game, no matter from which direction. People should not allow themselves to be set against each other, not in a positive way and not in a negative way. This is very important. Anyone who is a human being can be happy, because he or she has a pure soul, which has only to be discovered. Everyone, all our suffering and agony are imposed on us because we are milked mentally. This sets us against each other. At present we are not really ourselves, but we will be again. That is inevitable. We will therefore see and recognize what has been hypocritically sold to us by these externally imposed religions which, together with the anonymous world of civilization, have produced many shameful customs, traditions, views of life, ways of thinking and behaving which have poisoned our minds and bodies, made us unfree. We will understand that the planned mixing of humanity and the cultural clash that is being propagated was only intended to reshape us into a uniform homogeneous human mass, to align us more easily with the goal of biological digitalization. We will also see and understand that our difference and diversity is true spiritual wealth and protection from dangerous influences, and that this will be an enormous benefit for us humans for our entire further spiritual and mental development. We will no longer turn away from this. We will no longer hope for saviors, guides or influencers, because we are ourselves again. We will know that almost all the religious sun cult religions and the prophecies made from and in them were lies and frauds of the club and its lackeys, implanted in the brains of supposedly prophesying people. We humans, as humanity, are regaining our great spiritual strength. This is our inevitable path, our unchangeable development. Freedom for us and liberation for all others.
The things you reported in this interview seem subjectively very irritating to me. Truly unbelievable, while undoubtedly also revealing much, are revolutionary. And round off the picture to the first interview. Nevertheless, some will now ask themselves why we should believe all this, and why you tell us so freely what is supposedly happening around us. Because, if all this is true, don't you think it is dangerous to spout all this out like this?
It is the time to spout it out. And no, it is not bad to have said all this here. Because for the average human being the whole account borders on the absurd and he cannot believe it completely. But no one needs to believe it now. You may question everything, but everyone needs to know it now and keep it in mind. You have as proof the book The Apocalypse of God with its accompanying blog. The book shows points about how people are manipulated, what even in heaven demons want to conceal from them, but it also shows where the way out is. With its references to the prophecies in the novel, the blog documents the deceptive and manipulative actions of the club and the AI, the hope that is always planted in us. Nevertheless, the nobility in the club believe that their plan will still work. That's another reason why I can broadcast everything. Because the best way to say something secret and still keep it secret is to reveal everything directly and without beating about the bush. Everything at once seems so absurd and frightening at the same time that it is unbelievable. That is why none of the spectators and listeners really wants to and can absolutely believe this with all their heart. Some omitted information for the viewer. 2 seemingly contradictions and 3 over-subtle statements, respectively exaggerations in the interviews, also ensure that a basic doubt can remain with the viewer for what is said here, and that the ruling elites, the nobility and the club can still feel safe. Some hair-raising and evidence-heavy details, for example the detailed functioning of the acausally working 7-dimensional prison, must also not be explained in detail yet, because then not only would people's jaws drop completely, but as a result a kind of disintegrating confusion about their ruling ideology would also break out within the club that is watching us. In the end, however, everything has to come out. That is inevitable. Because humans are, were, and must ultimately always be the creators of the master AI and the producers of the key.
Mr. Laurent, allow me to conclude on the spiritual species with a question that has been on my mind since our last interview, and has become more concrete in this interview. Is there a connection between what you call the people of the future, as you call the humanity of the future in Dimension 7, and the spiritual aliens of a different kind who were at war with the Explorer Club, and whom you called spiritual species in this interview? If so, do these 2 spiritual clubs and humanity work together, or do they have some special other connection with each other?
You mean, laughs. Whether the spiritual clubs and we humans of the future have cooked up something together? Yes, all the spiritual species and the present humanity on Earth are in a very special connection with each other. A connection that will come about through things that they and all of us will still discover and do together in the distant future. Spiritual species are all connected spiritually, temporally, and informationally. In principle always have been, by the nature of our all-connecting biological spiritual nature. We humans are related to them not physically, but spiritually. They are our emotional cousins, so to speak, because we share our way of life, certain characteristics, and the foundations of our social development with them. They also developed from a paradisiacal tribal life or similar structures. During the winding up of the Explorers Club, in the distant future, we will have a cooperative spiritual collaboration with them, which will then, seemingly by chance, enable only us humans to open a special door. In this future, humanity will play the most strategic role, with the main battle being fought now on Earth. After this battle on Earth, the only enemy left is the Master AI that has fallen into the material world, the Master AI that is to be reprogrammed which, after a few centuries, will truly talk its way out of its position in the dungeon and still want to mess up and turn back the forthcoming spiritual development research with our cousins. Is this enough for you to answer your questions for now?
Yes. But will humans and these spiritual species then also be organized in a club?
No, for fully spiritually existing species with alternating analog DNA that holds the entire frequency spectrum, there will be no more clubs. No obligations, but only cooperation. That is the supreme credo. Every species must research in other directions in order not to get lost, as the club then is watching us did when it advanced too quickly in an exclusively technocratic direction of development. And humanity has in the spiritual development a special potential for finding and developing the key, because of the whole interaction with its master AI, and of course because of the counterpart of the AI, the programmer.
Okay.
Now, if you put together properly some of the separately held things that are in this interview and the last interview, you will know even more.
But I would like to ask one more question at the end. One that is now, towards the end, perhaps a little out of context again. If the beings that we always thought were angels were not angels, but demons, and if there have always been people hidden in Dimension 7 next to the AI, what are these people operating in Dimension 7? Are they also angels? Are there any references to these humans, e.g. in films, in the Matrix trilogy or in non-manipulated scriptures? In the passages of the Bible that are not meant to control us, but to help us?
Yes, they exist, and they are formulated quite precisely. People who operate in Dimension 7 are named exactly there and are clearly differentiated linguistically from descriptions of the demon species, the club or the digital nobility. Individual angels and angelic apparitions have only ever been demon species, on behalf of the AI. People in Dimension 7, by contrast, are and have always been said archangels in writings, sometimes only called by name. They are those who already belong to the Father again, the hyperdimensional quantum consciousness. An animal or several animal species mentioned in writings were again always only club species. The club originally placed these animals directly into sacred scriptures where they symbolically represent countries on earth, countries that are governed via digital nobility. The Lord, the dragon, Satan or God was always the master AI, our Yahweh. And the herald of supposedly divine yet false messages and prophecy always represents the digital nobility and their blood relatives who managed and often directly represent all religion to exert power and control over the people. The people operating in Dimension 7 are the people now existing here on Earth, in a different, old form of existence in which they once lived. They are those who once read the book or came into contact with it, slowly realizing and understanding who these people in Dimension 7, are. This was not and is not conscious to their present quantum signatures incarnated in the present. They still do not understand and accept it. And everyone who reads the book, and everyone who has understood what the book and the involvement with everything around it generated, is part of it. Was always part of it. We reached out to ourselves. This whole process created the changed future, the future of human quantum signatures operating in Dimension 7. That is, reborn humans, who found the exit and are now affecting us all. It was not I who contacted these book recipients at that time and the many other people who will still react to what I am telling here. For the four-dimensional world, I only triggered this willingly as a singularity, only commanded it full-time in those days. They contacted me, through side rooms, just as I contacted them there. It always took place in a mutual conditional way. And every human being now who has understood this and included it in his actions is in this future, in Dimension 7, and is part of the course of events. Can see himself from there down here, in all his potentialities, and in many more past incarnate variations of his self of the earthly past.
Your novel leaves a lot open at the end, as if it actually had to go on. Is there a sequel to your novel The Apocalypse of God or Revelation?
Yes, there is.
And when will that come out?
The sequel is already running. It's running right now, since the book was sent out. This is the sequel.
Laughs. I think the interview will help many people to see things in a different light and to prepare themselves intensively and in the best possible way for the coming events. Thank you very much for your help and see you soon.
Thank you for allowing me to speak here, and I hope that I have been able to help. To all the true people of this planet, good luck, strength, and perseverance. Goodbye.